Good
Okay.
evening, sir, and thank you for joining the session today, removing time from your schedule. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today, participants. I will quickly introduce Dr. Hari Iyer, Chairperson MBA Pharmaceutical Management, with the experience of over 25 years in the Indian pharmaceutical industry at various levels of marketing management, sales, training and development, corporate and business planning, SBU head, and as executive assistant to CMD. Exciting career with contribution, learning, and growth in all of the above functions. The companies he has worked with Glaxo, Sterling Holiday Resorts, Cadelia Pharma, and many more. His major strengths and skills are market planning and analysis, strategy planning and operations, communications, training and development, organization building, and team building. Over to you, sir. Thank you for joining the session.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm sure all of you are planning to write the NMAT with the hope of joining NMIMS. Now, NMIMS, as an institute, all of you know, it is amongst the top 10 ranked B school in the country, as per various ranking agencies. But if you look at MBA Pharmaceutical Management, we were the first to come with this sector-specific program in 2003. The first batch that passed out was in 2005. And though we are not formally ranked, but as per the Indian pharmaceutical industry, that MBA Pharmaceutical Management is the number one ranked, arguably the number one ranked in the country. And we can also say for sure that it is the destination for pharmaceutical management learning. That is so I'm very happy that all of you are planning to join here. Now I wish and hope you fare well with the examination to come into the portal of this institute. I wish you all the best in your endeavor. The other thing, what I want to say is about the industry. The industry, pharmaceutical industry, if you really see the topic that I was given to make you understand. Now, this is a great industry. But before me getting on to this industry, can I ask you, which are the two industries from India or sectors from India which has made a big global impact? Anybody, any idea? There are only two industries which has made a big impact in the global scenario and also contribute significantly to the Indian economy. Can you name the two sectors? Hello?
Sun Pharma.
I'm talking industry, not company. Which are the two industry, like airline, banking, right, shipping, you have pharmaceutical, you have IT, you have healthcare, so many industries are there. Hotel industry.
FMCG.
Which are the FMCG? Which are the two industry according to you which has made a big impact globally from India? Any idea?
Pharma.
Yeah, one is pharma, the other?
FMCG.
No, FMCG is here in India, not global impact.
Sir, agriculture.
No. How can you say agriculture? From an industry point of view, it is one of the best industry both in the domestic and globally, which not only contributes globally, but also earns a lot of revenue. It contributes significantly to the Indian economy. Okay. Having said that, let me also say, not that, this industry is very unique. You go back even 100 years. You will never see any recession in this industry. You will never see big swings up and down. It is a steady industry which has been growing at 10% plus CAGR over the last so many years. You can say decades or you can say 100 years. Why it is so? Anybody? Whereas you will see in all other industry, You will see whether it is airlines, finance, oil, or banking, or insurance, or hotel, all this industry goes through ups and downs. When there are ups, it is good. When it goes down, there is redundancy of job. People are sad, downsizing happens, salary cuts happen. But this is one industry where nothing of this type happens. There is no ups and downs. It goes steadily, smoothly. Why? Anybody?
Sir, because health is the primary concern for human
Very
and
good.
essential.
Very good. Yes. Who is that?
Kumud Singh.
Kumud Singh. Yeah. Kumud, you can't be more right. Because not that we should pray to God. The industry people, pharma industry people needn't pray to God that people should fall sick. But as long as the people are walking this planet, they will keep falling sick. So this is a great industry. Not that we want people to fall sick, but we are human beings. We are frail. You have seen what COVID did to us. Even in COVID times when all industry, of course, FMCG was doing well, but even in COVID times when most of the industries are down, pharma has grown at 10% plus. Why? Because this industry is a robust, vibrant industry revolving around human beings. So when we talk about healthcare, I didn't buy a paste, a particular paste or a car or a building, but I need to take care of my health. So when it comes to health, your family's health, there is no compromise. You know that people even sell their properties, their assets to take care of their loved ones, right? To the extent that some of the lower income people, they go below poverty line because of this problem. So that is a very unique peculiarity of this industry. So in any other industry you get into, other than pharmaceutical, I'm using the word other than pharmaceutical, any other industry you get into, it is very difficult for you to retire. You may see times of losing job. There will be a lot of uncertainties, insecurities. Of course, opportunities are there in any industry. But in pharmaceutical industry, unless you're so bad, you goof up things, it is very impossible for you to lose your job. You can get into this industry and have a smooth sail, and you can even retire in this industry. And once people come into this industry, they don't change from this industry to another. Simple reason, because it's the most secured industry. The second aspect, if you see about this industry, is that people come here because there is an ulterior motive along with the job. Indirectly, those of you who couldn't become a doctor, right? You are indirectly contributing to the human's healthcare. And that is very important. At the end of the day, you are earning, as well as there is a sense of satisfaction that you are doing a great karma of extending better healthcare to the population, more professional healthcare to the population through the doctors. Because doctors are dependent on you to understand about the drugs, in which indication to write which drug. You are the information provider. So that brings us to the third uniqueness of this industry. Unlike an FMCG or other industry, like IT industry, this industry too is a knowledge-based industry. You are meeting highly educated people. You have to continuously read, keep yourself updated so that you become very effective and efficient in performing your job. So at the end of the day, you are coming to a knowledge-based industry, and over a period of time, you see that people in this industry, whether it is at a medical representative level or at a CEO level, you will see that people virtually become as good as a doctor. Maybe they will not do an operation, or maybe they will not do treatment, but when it comes to diseases and the treatment protocol and the alternatives that are available to address the problem, all of them are very conversant. So that is going to be another gain that you are going to have in this industry. Okay. Rather than me speaking so much about it, I think if you're educated and if you're common sense, you will understand there is no industry to beat this industry. So When you come into this industry, you will be very keen to know where is this industry heading to, pharmaceutical industry, where it is heading to. Let me tell you, it's going great places. It was, it is, and going forward, it will go to great places. That is why I have taken this theme of this arrow going up. So welcome to this webinar on pharmaceuticals, Unravel the Infinite Opportunities. Okay. I would go about my presentation in such a way. I would like to finish it in half an hour. And I'm sure all of you will be having a lot of questions, right? Because you want to know, you are deciding on your life. You are going to invest a lot of money. You are going to spend 2 precious years of your life. Therefore, it is very important you should understand what you are getting into. You don't do things like your 12th standard. This is a professional course, a postgraduate course. It calls for a lot of clarity before getting into, because the money involved is big. You're going to spend about 15 lakhs and 2 precious years. So you should be very, very clear as what you are getting into. So my presentation will be more crisp and to the point. Most of the things are written there, you can read. I would like to give 50% of my time answering your questions if you have any. So at the end of the presentation, each one of you who have a question, you can ask questions. More, not about the presentation, but more about the course, MBA Pharmaceutical Management, about the industry. If you have any question, what are the scope, what are the career, what are the areas and domains you can enter into by doing an MBA Pharmaceuticals Management. If you ask questions related to that, it will help you to get some clarity as to where you need to, where you are coming in and what is there in store for you. Okay, so the presentation goes like this. India is one of the leading pharma producer in the world, right? It is catering to almost every country globally, including the developed country like the North America, Europe, Japan, Africa, Latin America, you name. That's why I told you this is the another industry apart from IT which has made a big time global impact. No other industry has made a global impact like pharma and IT globally. Okay. So if you take, it is one of the highest exporter of all the countries you take. Of course, there is China, which is ahead of us, but China may come down very soon because we are, once upon a time, today you know that 70% of our bulk drug is dependent on importing from China, not because we can't make it. Once upon a time, we were making these drugs. All the drugs that we are importing today from China, we were making it in India. But China has got an autocracy system. Most of the businesses are supported by state enterprises. So they have a cost advantage. So even if you put duty and import and shipping cost, everything, the landed cost of the bulk drugs here is much cheaper from China compared to what we were making here. So companies started procuring things. I mean, companies in India started procuring their bulk drugs from China, and thereby the bulk drug capacity in India got closed. But now the government, with what is happening recently, all of you know, the government is going to take certain initiatives to see that we do something whereby all this dependence comes down. If that comes down considerably, we will see that we can compete on par with China when it comes to exports of pharmaceuticals, both bulk drugs as well as the formulations. Indian pharmaceutical industry is amongst the fastest growing industry. If you see in our country, it has been having a CAGR of, that is compounded annual growth rate of 13% from 2015 to 2020. And going forward, it is going to be around 10 to 12%. And you know, 10 to 12% for any industry in any country, it's a big time growth. Don't think it is only 10%, because as the industry grows, the size of the industry becomes big. So it is growing 10% on a bigger base. So you will see that it is predicted over the up to 2050. That means 30 years from now, India pharmaceutical industry will be having a CAGR of 8 to 10%. Oh, that is amazing. It's a huge growth, right? And the healthcare sector. Healthcare sector means not only pharmaceutical, but the hospital, the diagnostics, the devices, you take any of this sector, all around providing healthcare to the population, it is growing fastest and it is expected to cross, can you believe, 372 billion by 2022, which is more than entire Pakistan's GDP. Gross domestic product of the country Pakistan is only $275 billion. And our healthcare industry alone is going to cross 372 billion by 2022. Possibly at that time, Pakistan will not be even matching this. Okay. High potential generics market. The generic market today, it was in 2016, it was $26.1 billion. Today, it has crossed more than $30 billion. And the total pharmaceutical industry has crossed $50 billion. Okay. Robust growth in biotech and biosimilar is another exploding category, which is still in its very infancy stage. It is given here by 24-25, the industry is estimated to increase to US dollar 100 billion from 11 billion what it was 5 years back. So you can see if it is 100 billion, you can say almost that biotech alone is around 40% of Pakistan's GDP. Okay, that is just a comparison for you to understand. There is no animosity between me and Pakistan, by the way. Okay. What are the advantages India has got? One, cost efficiency. The other is we have a diversified portfolio. Now, with the government of India taking a lot of initiative, you also know that recently we have brought Ayushman Bharat, which is a big 50 crore families are going to be covered. The underprivileged population, 50 crore, are going to be covered, which is a huge coverage provided by the government. And this again opens up a lot of opportunities for the pharmaceutical companies in India. And the economic drivers, all of you know, the purchasing power is increasing. People are able to afford now to go for treatment. Health insurance, which was very low penetration, has started picking up, has gained steam and momentum, and OTC is making its impact. And all of you know very well, cost efficiency wise, our cost, whether it is R&D or manufacturing, right? Our labor, the type of technical skills we have, the pool of scientists that we have, the pharmacists that we have, is all huge and a big potential and opportunity for the country to further leverage in the international scenario. Of course, we have APIs, we have formulations, we do technology manufacturing, transfer, and India, if you really see that we are the second country in the world outside the US, which has got the maximum US FDA approved plants. So that all the hardwares are in place to see that we move from substance to strength in the coming not 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but beyond 2050. So these are the advantages India is having. And the growth drivers, if you see on the supply side, on the demand side, and on the policy support. Policy support is largely taken by Government of India, like 100% FDI to start a new company, because there are a lot of large, medium, and small company, original research-based company in Europe, US, and Japan. They are still not coming to India. India is an attractive destination for companies to establish beachheads. But they have not come so far because India had a protected policy to protect the domestic industry. But now, not only now, from 1991, we have been progressively moving towards conducting business more easy, more company friendly, and we are bringing in certain policies which is going to attract a lot of these companies which has hitherto not entered this country, but possibly distributing their drugs in this country. But when policy support from the government comes in and it is coming through, then you will see a lot of these countries, companies from abroad would like to pitch their tent in India. Okay. Cost advantage, I told you we have good skilled manpower, good pool of scientists, good manufacturing facilities, right? And if you see on the demand side, yes, the disease, the prevalence of diseases, particularly lifestyle diseases, are increasing. Naturally, India is a developing country. As the development process happens, we are likely to get into typical lifestyle diseases like stress, depression, anxiety disorder, hypertension, diabetes, you name it. These are likely to happen like what it is happening in the developed country. So what happens in the developed country will happen here. It's likely to happen here. And India economy is increasing, per capita is increasing. As a result, you will see, and to add to this, you also see there is a lot of diagnostics and healthcare infrastructure is also improving day by day. So that is the growth drivers for this. And the demand drivers, what do you mean by demand? Demand is from the consumer side. You see accessibility. There are 4 A's. Actually, one A is missing here. That is awareness. That is accessibility, acceptability, affordability, and awareness. These are the demand drivers. For example, in accessibility, you see over US dollar 200 billion is going to be spent on medical infrastructure in the next decade. That is by 2025. $200 billion are going to be invested in building the healthcare infrastructure, which is not a small amount of money. Multiply 200 billion into 74 rupees. You can imagine the crores that is going to be pumped in. And we are seeing that why we are doing this, because we want to penetrate still smaller place. You know that in the rural area, the penetration of healthcare is very limited. They have to come to the nearest town or some place. And in emergency, sometimes they lose life because the time factor is an important consideration in emergency. So we are trying to reach to the last mile, to the possible last mile, the healthcare, and look at the hospital beds that are going to be added each year in the next decade. In fact, I recently came to know that NMIMS University is starting a medical college and they are putting up an hospital with 750 beds. It's a teaching institute. Like this, there are so many people, private sector, as well as, of course, the government is putting a bit slowly into it because they have other priorities. But largely the education and the healthcare sector is driven by the private sector. Yeah, whatever question you have, you take towards the end. So new diseases, you will see rising income that is happening. So people are getting more aware. They are going for consultation. Consultation leads to detection. Detection leads to consulting the doctor, which results in prescription, and prescription leads to increased business, right? Government-sponsored programs, health benefits to cover 380 million below poverty line people. The government also plans to provide free generic medicines to half the population at an estimated cost. That is from the government supply, which the companies have to supply to the government through tenders. And the government in turn is planning to spend about $5.4 billion in government hospitals. Okay. So these are some demand drivers, which I don't have to read out. You are seeing it yourself. But basically what you have to understand is that the supply side is also very robust for both domestic and global. And the demand drivers also very robust, both in the global and domestic. So you see from either way, that is why the pharmaceutical industry has transcended the borders to go to all over the globe to make an impact. Now let us see, this has been a general statement I have been making, which has come from various reports like McKinsey report, Ernst & Young report, BMI, and so on and so forth, even government report. But let us see some early predictors, some promising predictors, which is clearly going to show you that the industry, pharmaceutical industry, is going to be a Garden of Eden. Okay, let's see how it is going to be a Garden of Eden. Look at these figures, right? Look at the real GDP growth. Look at the number of doctors. This was actually projected for 2020 when we talked in 2009. The doctors have now reached to more than 9 lakhs as per 2020. And even after reaching 9 lakh doctors in the country, the doctor to patient ratio is very poor. The nurses, the paramedics to the patient is very poor. The number of hospitals per thousand population is very poor. The number of beds is very poor. So that means healthcare has hardly penetrated in this country. There's a long, long way to go. So what you basically see is that along with this, you will see now what is available in developed countries like US and Europe, what we call it as the payer system. Today, what we are doing, we are buying medicines out of our pocket. Of course, there is Mediclaim where you get hospitalized, you may get, but even Mediclaim, the penetration is hardly anything. That is why Ayushman Bharat has come. The government is willing to take care of the people who are below the poverty line, right? And on other side, you see the prevalence of disease. This is one disease, diabetes, right? What it was in 2005, 2010. And do you know what is in 2020? It has increased to almost 6%. And in 2030, India is going to be the diabetic capital of the world. So this is one disease, diabetes. Similarly, in cardiology, whether it is hypertension, myocardial infarction, you name it, the disease is progressing steadily. Not that we are happy about it, but these are inevitable. And therefore, the industry has to gear up to meet the emerging demands, better medicines, better care, better healthcare infrastructure for the population. Okay. Look at by 2020, 55 billion. Actually, if you put the entire exports, API, everything you put together, it is likely to be 70 billion in 2020. And we are expecting by 2050, it is going to cost more than 200 billion. So look at the scope that is there in the industry. Look at the growth, right? From 2009 to 2035. It has grown a CAGR of 10%. That is the pessimistic case. That is in 2009, they projected 2020, what is the pessimistic, base case and aggressive case. And do you know what exactly it is today? It is between aggressive and base case. It is about $60 billion, right? Which is a huge market, which is likely to go beyond 200 billion in another 2 decades. Okay. Health insurance penetration. Look at the gap. You understand what is penetration? Penetration is, there's a population 100. Today, only 3 are getting it. The 97 are deprived. So we call the penetration is only 3%, right? Look at the penetration present in health insurance. It has just 2020, they projected 45%. It has not even touched 38%. Now look at the amount, the way you have to go ahead, right? So this is another thing which is going to further fuel the growth of the industry, because when health insurance comes in the picture and it penetrates to a greater population, today from the out-of-pocket expenses what people are meeting, that will be taken care by the insurance. So they will approach for better healthcare, and that healthcare can be taken care of by the insurance companies. So that gives a tremendous scope for pharma companies in India. Look at the healthcare spent by government, hardly anything. If you see 2005-6 as a percentage to GDP, 0.84%. And even in, if you take in 2020, it is 1.2%. Now, Do you think that should be the spending of a government on healthcare of its citizens? No. If you go to US, etc., you will see it is 7 to 8% of their GDP is spent on healthcare because the health of the nation is in its citizen. Our country, of course, we are a developing country. We are moving towards a developed state. It will take some time. India is forecasted to become the third largest economy by 2025. However, that is in terms of the GDP. However, the quality of life will be, India will be still the poorest 100 country in the world. Okay, we may be the top third economy in the world, but we will still remain the 100th poorest country in the world because of the sheer population. So look at the growth there, even though it is a small contribution from the state and central government to healthcare, it's hardly, the growth is very good. If you take the CAGR, it is about 18%. But if you see absolute terms, the GDP percent is less than 1%. And recently in 2020 report, I saw it was about 1.2 or 1.3%. Hardly anything. Look at America spending 8%, Europe and all developed countries spending anywhere from 4 to 9%, and look at us, less than 1%. So that again is an indicator that we can see for great times ahead. Affordability and accessibility will drive the base. See, affordability is increasing. Why affordability is increasing? Because per capita income is increasing. Manrega, etc., is ensuring that people get at least so many days of job in a year at a particular rate. And now there is no middleman involved in it. They get directly credited to the bank account. So you will see that the affordability factor is going to contribute significantly to the growth. And acceptability, that means better and better products are going to come, which is going to address the healthcare need. And then accessibility is what? Accessibility is basically that the availability or the reach to the healthcare. See, today, many medicines are not accessible to many because of the cost, or the healthcare is, hospitals are sometimes beyond the reach. And therefore, you see that in all this aspect of acceptability, accessibility, and affordability, coupled with epidemiological factors, that means the disease factors. The disease factors in acute therapy will come down a bit, whereas in chronic therapy it will climb. The reason being that India's sanitation is improving, and whereas the lifestyle diseases will keep increasing because it is more to do with stress and anxiety disorders. Okay, okay, we have seen this. Now look at it. Companies are shifting their brand from tested area to white spaces. That means players are driving growth in brands by transitioning newer therapies to GPs and CPs. Products which were meant for consultants, because the molecule potential can be realized much more at the primary healthcare provider, that is the GPs, companies are moving into the GP specialty and marketing the product. For example, normally a product, diabetic drug which has come, the way the price is coming down for these drugs, this category, this class of drug to treat diabetes, it is now moving from diabetologists, consulting physician, nephrologist, and all these people down to GPs. So that is why you see that, you know, brand X grew 7 times faster than market and 3 times faster than the market leader. So whoever was the market leader, that person has been overtaken because you see that the GP base is a larger base compared to the consultants, which are few in number. So the brand building opportunities are increasing. The potential to realize a molecule's application in healthcare is increasing by this transfer from top to bottom. So that is another aspect of good growth we see here. Okay. And all of you know the rural urbanization that is happening. Okay, urbanization that was there in 2001, 8, and 30. In 30, it is going to be 40% urbanization is going to happen. That is, we are going to have 59 crore people in 2030 who will be based in urban compared to what it is today. And growth in urban real income is also going up considerably, because you can see from year 201 to 208, it has jumped by 207%. And in 2025, it's a per capita in US dollars. In US dollars, it's going to be 2,480. So the disposable income is there. The income, they don't have to really sell. The insurance is going to get, they are going to get covered by the insurance. So they don't have to really dispose of their assets to treat their loved and dear ones. Now, in share of India's GDP, you will see that the rural and urban is vanishing. Right now, if you see in 2020, if you see now, it is roughly about, I don't know, you can say around 50-50. But you will see now the rural is going to, because you see there is massive shift which is happening from rural to urban. So naturally, the share of India's GDP is going to also reduce in the rural and tend more towards the urban. Not only the disposable income is going to do in the urban is going to increase, but you can also see that the annual per capita disposable income in rural region is going to go from 411 in 2010 to 631 in $631 we are talking, okay, in 2020. So, and this is likely forecasted that it is going to touch about 1,000 plus US dollars in 2030 or 2025. I'm not sure. Okay. So both urban and rural disposable income is going to go. That shows that India is moving towards a developed country, though it is going to take another 50, 60, 70 years because of the sheer population that we have. Okay. Hospital. Look at the projected size of hospital market, right? You see here that the growth rate is 13 point, you can see the growth rate at the bottom. That is base 2020, conservative 2020, and aggressive case on 2020. And can you believe it has come to the aggressive base of 26% growth? Okay. So that means we have shown that light and blue is the public and private. I told you that in India, the healthcare is driven largely by the private sector. So is the education area also. You will see that it is driven by the private sector. So the hospital market size is going to increase. The number of beds is going to increase. The number of hospitals, nurses, doctors, all are going to increase. If they are going to increase, because the number of people coming to them is increasing. If it is so, then naturally the requirement for drug is going to increase. So that is why we say that these are very good indicators to show the industry is on a very vibrant path. Okay. Look at the opportunities that are opening. One is what is traditional opportunity and non-traditional opportunity. Traditional opportunity is the existing ones, which constitute the Indian pharmaceutical market. And what is non-traditional? Non-traditional is now India accepting the product patent. We will see patented products, consumer healthcare. That means we are going to go to a state of around 50% by 2020, which has not happened. It is again tilted to traditional, but by 2025, it is likely to become 50-50. That means the existing products, whatever is there as of now, they will contribute to 50% of the total, what you call as market share, 50%, and the newer one which are going to come. The important thing is you have to focus in both the place. There is a great scope to build the existing products, and there is a great scope to build the new products that are going to come in. So both the places you require people to manage these brands, okay? Then companies can build business in looking at the existing products as well as new products, okay? Now look at the ratio of medical representatives to the doctors. It is 0.1. Estimated number of representatives in 2005 age 60 to 70, forget 2005, 2020, this number has been crossed. We have more than 4 lakh medical representatives in India. And as I told you, 2020 around, we crossed 9 lakh doctors. But still, if you see the ratio of representatives, look at it, it is less than 1. Of course, it has to be less than 1, but it should move further higher. See, the another aspect you have to see here is if you go to US, which is where technology has made its entry much before what it has happened in India, you will see in the US, companies would have downsized in terms of mergers and acquisitions. They would have moved out duplication of jobs. But the number of field force, the medical representatives, they have only increased, because this is an industry where we cannot use mass media like TV, radio, and newsprint to promote the brand. What do you mean by promote the brand? To communicate the brand to the target market. So we have to have this guy, this medical representative, he or she is the media for us, because we have to meet on a one-to-one basis with the doctor to communicate the brands and the product and about the diseases. So you see here, there is again an exploding opportunity that is waiting to happen. Okay, forget scope for job opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry. Within the pharmaceutical industry, you will see we can also attract talent from other non-pharma background. They will find a lot of opportunities in our industry, whether it is FMCG, okay, event management, mobile telephony, because you will see a lot of now with COVID, people are doing teleconsultancy, NGOs, teachers, bank, insurance, BPOs, so many others can be attracted, their talent can be brought in, and they will find a scope here. So apart from people in our industry, we can also provide a lot of space and job opportunities for others. Okay. Now, once you do your MBA pharma, so what we have seen so far is all these figures, what it speaks is amazing growth. And I can tell you for sure, you will see, look across, yes, there is one sector which is also growing, and that is online commerce, right? E-commerce, which is also growing very attractively, and going forward, they will also grow very attractively. Otherwise, and IT, yes, bit slowed down, but IT will also continue to do, and pharmaceutical industry is going to really beat both IT as well as e-commerce. E-commerce initially now is having a good momentum, but going forward, pharmaceutical industry is going to have a big, over a period of time, a CAGR of 8 to 10%. Now, this is a these are all indicators which clearly shows us that this is an industry which is going to boom, grow, and sustain over a period of whatever number of years you can think, or in other words, to put it, as long as the mankind is alive. Okay. Having said this, I come here. Now, if you are looking at what are the areas in which you can get into the pharmaceutical industry, you can get into pure pharmaceuticals, that is marketing, manufacturing, marketing of APIs or formulations, then medical devices are there, market research agencies, consultancy, whether even IT consultancy have healthcare verticals. So Wipro, TCS, all these people take people from pharma industry as domain specialists for those verticals. Diagnostics are there, healthcare communications is there, nutraceuticals. Going forward, you will see more and more with more sophisticated drug. For example, tomorrow stem cell therapy can come in, gene therapy can come in. Tomorrow even robotics medicines can come in, which you just swallow it, it goes into your vein and targeted delivery of the drug. So a whole lot of things coming in. It is only going to widen the scope of the sectors, the job domains that will be available within the industry. Okay, now I come to the end of my talk. I now leave the forum open. Should any one of you want to ask any question about the industry or about the MBA Pharmaceutical Management Program, you can ask now. But one rule, ask one at a time, not all of you together. One at a time you ask, switch on your video and audio and ask me the question. Yeah.
We have a question from somebody. He says, "Sir, what are the domains we have chance to enter after completing our MBA Pharma?"
Yeah, I just showed you here. You can get into pharma companies, medical devices companies, market research agencies, consulting companies, diagnostics, healthcare communications, nutraceuticals. And as we go forward, most domains will get built up. So there are enough domains where you can get after doing your MBA Pharmaceutical Management. As regards to the work, you can get into sales, business analysis, project management, marketing, client servicing and business development, international marketing, operations. Yeah, these are the areas where you can get in when you do MBA Pharmaceuticals Management. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What will be the pay scale, sir, after the completion of pharma and the...
What will be the pay?
Yes.
The pay is, there are students who get 19 lakhs and there are students who get 7 lakhs. So if you, it depends upon how good the student is and which company is taking them. The median package is around 7.5. That is the median start pay, because you have people at 19 lakhs and people at 7 lakhs. So the lowest will be around 7. Most of them will be in the range of 7 to 12. Few of them will be in 15 and very few of them will be in 18, 19 lakhs per annum. So if you take the average of the entire batch, it will be around 7.5 lakhs.
Due to this COVID situation, many of the companies using digital platforms like email. In long term, how will they affect the pharma industry?
Oh, no. See, right now it is the situation where only different states, different things are happening. In some states, the medical representatives have started visiting the doctors, but they meet in a particular way. There are various arrangements, like the doctor earlier used to go into the doctor's chamber. Now, you know, they maintain a distance and the representative talks. They are doing through webinars. They're connecting through WhatsApp. They're connecting through direct mailers and internet, email. And representatives who have got relationship with doctors, say every representative will have at least out of his 100, 150 doctors, at least with 30, 40 doctors, he has good relationship with those doctors. He is meeting them. Some of them allow him to meet them, but maintaining the same distance, he reminds them about the product. In certain place, it is getting very difficult. So what they are doing is they are contacting the doctors through WhatsApp video or through Google video call. They are talking to the doctors and they are conducting webinars. These are some of the ways they are now promoting. But when things come to normal, well, we had to come to the new normal, but the medical representative job will be there. The area manager job will be there. The regional manager job will be there, and they will continue to meet. So we don't foresee any problem of discontinuation of medical representatives. It never happens. It's very unlikely to happen. They will find, for the time being, they will find methods until a vaccine comes. A vaccine is not going to come very soon, because those of you who have done your B.Pharm, you will understand a drug will take minimum 4 to 5 years. Vaccines, all the more difficult. It has to be tested not only for efficacy, but also for safety. So if at all some vaccine is launched within the next 1 year after COVID starting, I would strongly say don't take that vaccine, because those vaccines will get approved based on political pressure and economic pressure. Because of the lockdown, the economy is affected severely, and so is severe political pressures are there. So they will fast track the approval of vaccines based on the efficacy side. but due diligence will not be done on the safety side. So any vaccine, if it is going to come before 5 years, definitely I will not take it, right? Because all those vaccines have not been rigorously tested. And it will get approved, no doubt, because lot many people are dying. So we have to see benefit versus risk ratio, and therefore they may approve some vaccine fast, but people who know the subject, it is next to impossible to launch a vaccine in 2 years, 3 years. Okay. So, and I don't think that things are going to, because this COVID is also a virus like any other viruses. Only thing is it is going directly to the lungs and to the blood system, right? But doesn't matter. After some time, people will develop herd immunity, and this virus is going to not, just as it came, it is not going to go out. It is going to be there in the society, and we have to live up with it. Like so many other viruses are there, we will develop immunity. And those people who are weak in their immunity, that means that individually in their body, those people who are weak, like how flu catches them, COVID will catch them. Right? So that is why it is very important that during COVID time, take a lot of vitamin D, vitamin C, and strengthen your lungs through breathing exercise. I don't think you should get into any trouble. So it's very important that COVID is not going to go. It's going to be there. And our business will continue. In fact, the Novartis CEO recently in his interview, Vas Narasimhan is the global CEO of Novartis. In fact, he said, COVID cannot be treated with vaccine alone, whatever time it comes. A whole lot of other treatment ecosystem will grow around it. So COVID is not that we want COVID, but COVID is actually a blessing for our business. Yeah. Any other question?
Sir, we have a question from Ruchika. Can we enroll in UNICEF internship program during this course or after this course?
During this course, you cannot do, because this is to go to America and do, right? Hello? Hello? This is a certification program what pharmacists do to go to America. So when you are doing this course, you cannot do that course, because you cannot do 2 degrees at the same time. You can, that is an examination, certification examination. If it is, you can give it on your own. But if you take an MBA, for giving that exam, you don't require an MBA. You can give it before MBA also, after MBA also. And if it is a certification program, which you need to look in, then along with your MBA, you can do. For example, in the college, the core MBA, there are students who are doing their MBA in finance, and they are also doing their CFA. Some of them are completed their CA or doing their CA. So anything is possible. Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, actually, this is Sai Kiran. I have 3 years of experience in my sales as a key account manager in Novartis. If I get into MBA, what will be the additional advantages which adds to my future? Like, can I know
additional advantage? MBA is the what do you call as people going forward. People are going to prefer MBAs for the simple reason. If you want to advance, see, not that an MBA is a prerequisite for growing. Any individual who is a good contributor, good performer, and who invests in himself to develop himself, and he will grow. See, in industry, there are a lot of people who are no MBA. In any industry you go, there are people who are no MBA, but they have risen right up to the managing director level. That is always there. But if you have an MBA, you will have an accelerated career. But it doesn't guarantee like that. Nobody, just because you did an MBA, nobody is going to promote you. Come on, your MBA, I will promote you. No. Even if you do an MBA, if you want to have a career, it is important. You have to perform. You have to contribute in whatever job you are doing. But the MBA it facilitates a faster track because you know how to conduct a business. You have a understanding of entire gamut of business, be it finance, be it HR, be it sales, marketing, right? Or production, manufacturing, supply chain. You name the function in a large pharma company, you study all those functions in your program, right? So as a result, what happens is you are like a CEO at the helm of the entire thing. That type of approach a non-MBA will not have. So if let's say a non-MBA is performing very well and a MBA is also performing very well, for the next position, I will prefer an MBA because he has got a better perspective to do the business compared to a non-MBA. Otherwise, if you really ask in our industry or in any industry, there are a lot of people without MBA also, they are grown up, but then they are very rare and few. If you want to really grow up, it is very important that you should have a degree which will ensure that you are considered when appropriate time comes. Okay. So there are a lot of people who have worked as key business executive, account executive, or medical representatives. They have come and done their MBA here, and then they have gone into brand management. Now, some of them are on the way to senior management in the domestic and global. Now, had they remained a representative, they wouldn't have reached this far. But because they took the degree MBA Pharmaceutical Management from here, we have your alumni who passed out in 2005, 2006. They are all SBU head, posted in the domestic as well as outside India in various countries. And they are doing very well. Okay. So I will not be surprised the first batch, 1 or 2 in the next 10 years, they will be the CEOs. Okay. So if you do your job, hope you grow in that line. You come here and you can get a accelerated start and you can make your career. But at the end of the day, it all comes down, degree is important. But you have a degree and you don't contribute to the company, why should they promote you? So an MBA is an added advantage to have a faster career, to go to the top. Yeah.
So then we have one question from Jerin. As I'm engineer, can I apply for pharmaceutical management?
No.
Does graduation in field matters in doing MBA in pharmaceutical management?
No, if you are, what engineering is, if he is mechanical, no, you don't come, neither you qualify for it. Mechanical engineers cannot come to do MBA Pharmaceutical Management. The criteria is life science, B.Pharm, biotechnology, B.Tech in biotechnology, right from a recognized university with minimum 50% mark. These are the criteria. So DA, B.Com, BSc Mathematics, mechanical engineering, computer engineering, they are not eligible.
So what will be the NMAT score cutoff in this year?
It will vary from year to year. But last year it was 175, I think, 175, right? So it can be 180, it can go down also, 175 to 172 or 173, or it can go upward 175 to 180. It varies from year to year. So to be on the safer side, you have to prepare very hard and you have to score minimum, if I take last year, minimum you have to score 175. And not only overall 175, we also see that quant, verbal, logical, or 3 compartments, one per be minimum requirement is there. You have to meet that minimum required individually. And then overall 175.
Hello.
But it can be up and down, plus minus 2, 3 here and there. Yeah.
Hello, good evening, sir. Kumud here.
Yeah.
Sir, I have 2.3 years of experience in pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, and my profile was technology transfer. But once I changed my third company, that my profile, I didn't get the profile which I wanted. So I back off from that company and prepared my mind to go for MBA, because that profile was like copy and paste. You don't get challenge in everyday life, like in tech transfer. So asking you that is pharmaceutical management is good or pharmaceutical health management and pharmaceutical management,
Pharmaceutical
because
management is specific to pharmaceutical industry. Health
yes,
management, there, if the health management course is there, that is not necessarily for pharmaceutical industry. If you do MBA pharmaceutical management, you can get into healthcare. But if you do healthcare, you cannot get into MBA pharmaceutical.
okay, so
But
but I was
there's a special hospital MBA is there, hospital administration, that is only related to hospitals, but they cannot get into pharma industry. Okay, that is into the hospital, which is part of healthcare.
okay.
Pharma MBA in pharmaceutical management gives you a wider scope, which I showed you here. It
Yes,
gives you
yes,
a lot of domain to get into.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So, but the daily challenges that, like I talked to you about, that copy and paste, even in big companies,
Oh, you
at
knew that.
graduate level, at B Farm level, people are used to treat
Are
us
you? What
like
is your
we are.
background? What is your background? Hello.
Hello.
Are you? Your background is B Farm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You will
Yes,
have
sir.
enough challenges. You know challenges in sales and marketing. It is so
Yes, yes.
dynamic. I hope you rise up to those challenges.
Thank you, sir.
It's a
Thank
very
you.
dynamic job.
Because I was looking for the challenging job, like
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
used to do in tech transfer,
In
not
fact,
in.
in fact,
Yes.
when you are in sales and then in marketing, it's not only very dynamic, but also it is one of the most royal type of job you can do. Unlike a brand manager or a marketing manager in FMCG and other industry, the brand manager and marketing managers in the pharmaceutical industry, they have a much more sophisticated life, more cool. And when I say cool, everywhere
Yes.
there are challenges and jobs, but the
Yes.
type of running around, the type of uh, pressure is much lesser in pharmaceutical industry compared to uh, other industries.
But sir, in marketing, is there any challenge for gender, like gender diversity, gender kind of, मतलब
I don't
girls and
understand.
all?
Marketing itself is challenging. Sales is very challenging. If you know
Okay.
somebody who is doing sales, ask him how challenging it is. And marketing is very challenging, but the job is one is doing from the office and the other is doing in the field.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
job is very challenging.
Okay.
Whether it is marketing or sales, it is challenging, very challenging. The
Okay.
way, the type of innocent question you are asking, I have
Yes.
a feeling whether you know. See, it is not a desk job, and even if it is a marketing is a desk job, it's a very glamorous job, right? There is so much of travel, meeting people, organizing seminars, right? CMEs, going and doing sales review with the salespeople, developing your brand plan. They are not very easy as you think. They are very exciting. It stimulates your brain, right?
Okay,
So
sir.
plenty of it is will be assured. Don't worry.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Any other question?
Uh, uh, Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So I am Rajdeep, and I am working in Cipla for second year, 2 years experience, and before that I have completed my B Farm. So my question was, what are the job profiles that I will get if I do the MBA in pharmaceutical management?
It depends. If once you see, basically, students who pass out from here, some of them go directly into marketing in pharma companies, PMT. Most of them go into sales, where they have to work for. It varies from company policy to company policy. At least for 6 months to 1 year, they have to work in frontline selling. And based on your performance, anywhere from 6 to 1 year, they take 6 months to 1 year, they take you back into product management team. Okay. Some companies, they directly take you into PMT, but they are very few companies, because pharmaceutical industry believes that if you have to be a good brand manager, first you have to work in the field, see there from close quarters the consumer behavior and the competition, and then come back. So you may not be there in the field for too long. If some company takes you into the field, they put you there for 6 months to 1 year, depending upon the company policy, and then they see how you perform there, and then they bring you to product management team and make you a product manager. Okay, some companies will take you directly as a management trainee into the PMT. But even in the field, when you are as a management trainee working in the field, your salary is very much different from the medical representative salary because you are a potential candidate to go into office. Now, this is about pharma industry. Similarly, I told you there are other sectors. For example, medical devices. They can take you directly into marketing or into field market research. It's basically an option globally also, and you can get into those companies. Then diagnostics companies are there. Then there are a lot of companies which are into, like you have advertising in FMCG. We call them as healthcare communication companies. You can get into them. Then there are nutraceutical companies. They also want MBA pharmaceutical management. You can get in there also. So the thing is, it depends which company. Largely, I can say around 60% go directly into office job in various domain, what you see here, and around 40% or 45% go to field, work there, and then they are taken into head office or to the corporate office. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Hello, I'll give you 5 more minutes. Please ask questions.
Sir, Isha this side.
Yeah,
Sir,
Isha.
actually, I'm pursuing BSc in biotechnology. So this will be beneficial for me.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. It will be beneficial.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, Kumud here again.
Yeah, Kumar.
Sir, I want to ask when you in an interview, what you look into a student of who is pursuing MBA, like as an
You are
interviewer.
asking about selection, right?
Yes, sir. But
number one, you have to crack the examination,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Number two, there is a group discussion, personal interview process.
Yes, yes.
Once you clear that, and then see, we get a lot of application. Normally, every year we call about 400 to 500 students for the group discussion and personal interview, right? Whoever has cleared that cutoff, we call around 400 to 500. And after this 400 to 500 going through a GDPI, we shortlist around, we release a merit list of around 110. And out of that, we give admission to 80 to, this batch is 87. So 80 to 90 people.
Okay.
So what we look at it is that one, how well you performed in the examination, how well you perform in the group discussion and personal interview. And those people who have work experience, we give a little bit, it's not that freshers are at a disadvantage, but those who have work experience, they get some added weightage. Because there are various scorings are there. Your academics is there. Then after academics, your work experience is there. Your NMAT score is there. Your GDPI score is there. All this has got different weights. So some small weight is given for people with work experience.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think, sir, you have covered all the questions.
Okay.
So we can end the session.
We can end the session?
Yes. So
okay. Thank you all, and I wish you the best. Prepare hard and try to come, because it will be one of the best course for you to do. And secondly, firstly, it is one of the best industry to get into. And secondly, it will be the best course you can think of.
Thank you, sir, for such an insightful session.